Okay, so it is 9:15 on 16 a.m. Tuesday the 12th of March 2019. I'm not sure if I think I'll shave as long as the weather's warm enough to warrant it. I think I'll grow my hair out and get a scissor cut with its low maintenance over the winter, and a beard, even though shaving isn't actually expensive. Anyway, the Queen's Justice within the Queen's Government, a book by Ivor Jennings, continuing from yesterday, and to be posted in the same order or thread as the previous sections of this chapter. Chapter 8, the final chapter. So we did yesterday Law and Opinion, and the independence of the judiciary. You have to lisp to make it sound proper. I think that's one thing my father taught me. You wear a business suit. It's one of the gayest languages on earth. It's just really sophisticated German with a few things blended in this English. So we'll just do two more sections. One's a page, one is 5 pages. So this will take a while, maybe 20 minutes. Functions of the judiciary. The light's uneven. I don't think it matters really. Exactly what fields of administration ought to be exercised by courts is a matter on which differences of opinion are possible. The courts have 3 characteristics. They are independent and impartial. They are staffed, except at petty sessions, by persons trained in the law who have generally acquired a wide knowledge of humanity but have no technical knowledge. They have a highly efficient system for establishing facts, which is, however, dilatory, and expensive. Clearly, they should exercise ordinary civil and criminal jurisdiction, but there are difficulties at the margin. Difference of opinion between the state, capitalized, and John Doe, capitalized, is not necessarily a problem for settlement by an impartial arbitrator. For instance, if a local authority wishes to acquire Blackacre, capitalized, compulsorily in order to establish a children's home, the owner may well object, like an orphanage. Or you could just commission him to start an orphanage, petition him, give him a grant, I don't know. You don't have to confiscate people's lands. He bought Blackacre in order to live there peaceably to the end of his days, and even though he's paid a good price, it is a serious inconvenience to him to have to go house hunting. So it's not confiscation, it's a forced buyout, I suppose. Sometimes the governments or others do that. What was it in the US with... it's not forced acquisition, there's a special term or phrase for it. Basically, they force you to sell. Just kind of shit. But sometimes I suppose it has to happen. Or you get those little pockets in China where, what was it with the Olympic Games, where they're like digging around the entire, I'm not sure it's real, but it's like this little island of a man's house left on like 100 feet of earth, and the rest of the entire thing is dug out. Oh, actually, that was another thing in China where they'll build just like cinder block shit. Acquire land, some people, and they'll just build it where they know a highway is going to be. That was Sophie. This is not very professional if you can't tell. Anyway, in China, they'll just build the most basic cinder block structure, leave it there, and then claim compensation. Or was that something I can't remember? It's like a scam, sort of, or it's just a way of disrupting and obstructing things, or fucking with the governments, the civil works departments, or whatever they're called. It's quite a divergence. This will take a long time. This kind of problem can of course be settled by court. The local authority can brief council to explain the public advantages of taking Blackacre rather than some other land. John Doe can brief council to explain the inconvenience which he will suffer. This is, however, a dilatory and expensive way of answering a simple question, whether the needs of the community in this particular case are sufficiently great to justify the inconvenience to John Doe. That question is more easily answered by an inspector of the Ministry of Local Government, capitalised, than by a court, and the only expense involved is the travelling allowance of the inspector. Again, the assessment of John Doe's compensation can be undertaken by a court, each side calling expert evidence about values. I hope the ambient noise isn't too much. Just birds and... It should be fun. Expert values. It is, however, easier and cheaper to give the job to an independent valuer. Nor is this the only type of case. The question whether a person is unemployed and, quote, genuinely seeking work is capable of being decided by a court. And it is important to the person concerned because it will decide whether he is entitled to insurance benefit. Imagine if we did that. Oof, that sounds fascist to me. Couldn't have that. As they used to, I think, require you to work, or they imprisoned you in, what was it, like the Eastern Bloc, Czechoslovakia and Poland or wherever. Not as bad as in Russia, where they just compelled you to work. What was it? You had no eat, no food, no work, which is actually a biblical thing. So I don't know. That's a whole other topic then. Not sure why this is blended in. He pulls in some strange examples. Nevertheless, if he has to take the official to court, he will never get justice, and if the official has to take the insured person to court, that person may never get benefit. There are many cases of this character in which delay and expense are important. As a learned judge, once remarked, quote, "The courts are open to everyone, like the Ritz Hotel." As the state has intervened more and more in social and economic affairs in recent years, yogurt. That's another conversation. A rule of pronunciation. Probably shouldn't get into that now. Vowels being distanced from other vowels, and anyway, I'm not sure if it's an actual linguistic rule or just it's a pattern I've noticed there. There have been many arguments over the boundaries of jurisdiction. The lawyers tend to assume that the officials, in their anxiety to extend their own powers, have been encroaching on the functions of the courts. Italics, bureaucracy triumphant, and in italics, the new despotism, were the titles of two of the books published around 1930. The officials, on the other hand, tend to think that the lawyers are obstructive and antagonistic to essential reforms. Since the civil service is a silent service, it wrote no books, and its observations, if any, will have been kept in confidential files, which is really useful. Fucking ridiculous. Probably, though, it was noted that most of those who objected to the distribution of the jurisdiction objected equally to the nature of the legislation, and that, whereas more work for officials merely meant more officials, more work for lawyers meant more fees. Paid by who, I don't know. The clients, the parties that lose out in court. Like, for example, if the Queen takes issue with something, the Crown pays, so they're paying out of whatever coffers and cash reserves they have, or I don't know. Or you just requisition lawyers. Like some lawyers work gratis, like some doctors do work practically for free in some cases, I suppose. Incredible. Do one more paragraph and start another section. Start another video. The issue has been confused by the belief that there is a group of easily definable functions which may be classed as, quote, judicial. I'm going to close this window. Judicial, and marked off from another group which may be on. You can see the Battle of Britain 1940. It's like a cheap print of a painting. This was my younger uncle's. The youngest of my mother's brothers, of which she is the youngest. So her immediately older brother. Yeah, and It's quite a boys' room. There's a lot of aircraft in here. Yeah. We'll see. Maybe I will join the RAF, the Royal Australian Air Force, in a couple of years, or maybe never. Maybe there'll be paramilitary aviation. We don't know. Interesting. Space Nazis. Shouldn't detract to some bad thoughts. Which may be classed as and marked up from another group. It's a distracting painting. Classed as, quote, executive or, quote, administrative, the third group of functions not at present relevant, but on which this civil service is also said to have encouraged, is classed as, quote, legislative. This threefold division of powers, which is to be found in Aristotle, was referred to by John Locke, the defender of the glorious revolution in capitals, and elaborated into a principle by Montesquieu in his study of the English Constitution, capitalized. Montesquieu did not, in fact, quite produce the modern classification, which seems to be due to Madison, the American, I suppose, in italics, the Federalist, the document designed to defend the draft Constitution of the United States of America. That's all.